Well, it's time now for the Inside Story with Avery Haynes. And tonight, Avery, a very interesting one.
Well, tonight's story is about one man who has stunned the medical community with a very simple discovery that could forever change one of the most misunderstood syndromes.
I wasn't diagnosed till I was 19. I knew that I was different around the age of 7. I had dreams where I'd get locked up in a padded room and the key thrown away because people found out my secret. I'll never forget what those 12 years of not knowing what was going on was like.
It's one of the most misunderstood syndromes. They don't know the cause, and there is no cure. There aren't even any definitive numbers on how many people have it because many go undiagnosed. It causes shame, embarrassment, and misunderstanding.
This flashbulb memory I have, I just remember in my head thinking no. No, they don't get it. And the panic started where I realized I can't stop doing this and it's happening. And I don't seem to be able to talk. I can't talk about it because people don't seem to understand. They seem to think it's bad. Maybe I should be trying to hide it.
You're a kid,
yeah,
and you don't have any name for what it is that you're doing.
Yeah. And
you're thinking there's something.
Well, I had names. They just weren't the accurate names. Freak, hated by God, loser. It was first year university when I first started seeing a doctor about getting a name for it.
And what was the name that you got?
Tourette syndrome.
Just a decade ago, Duncan McKinley couldn't get through a conversation without a barrage of outrageous tics.
I'll give you your buffet o' tics. Eyebrow movements or blinking your eyes, sniffing. Sometimes I've had an innie, other times it's been an outie. That one's a little nasty in the winter. Doing things with your mouth. I actually had one where I'd stick my tongue out. That could actually get quite sore. Sometimes it's a shake like that. Other times it's been sort of more of a cracking thing. I had like a like that or a people looking around and saying things like, is there a dog in here?
The horrified thought that's going through all of the audience's mind simultaneously right now is, my God, he drives.
Back then, controlled by his tics, Duncan spilled out the agony Tourette's caused him as a child for a documentary.
I remember catching myself in the mirror every once in a while and seeing myself tic, and I would tell myself, stop, cut it out, don't do that again, you look like a freak. And I'd do it again, and of course the more you think about not doing it, the worse it gets. And I'd get so angry, I'd think, I'll show it. So I'd tick and I'd hit myself. And I'd say, there, see what happens? See, you freak? That's what happens when you do bizarre, weird, dumb stuff like that. You get hit. It's not fun. It hurts. So cut it out. Don't do it anymore. Quit it. And I'd tick again. There, that's stupid. You're not going to learn? That you don't do this stuff? I'd tick again, I'd hit myself again, I'd be ticking more and more and more, I'd be hit myself more and more and more.
Flash forward to now. Duncan is Dr. McKinley, a PhD in psychology, who after years of trying to punch away the tics, trying to lock them up and hide them, has made a surprisingly simple discovery. He has taught himself how to banish more than a dozen tics.
I still do have tics. It's just the difference is that the only tics I have now are ones that I couldn't be bothered to get rid of. I would say I've definitely worked on more vocal tics. Dated a girl that was prone to migraines. That didn't work out so well when I was doing that all the time. And so, or the girl with panic disorders. That was a bit of an abject failure as well. And,
because all of a sudden she'd be feeling calm and you'd bang
exactly. And so, those were causing a lot of problems.
Up until now, the primary treatment was medication, which wipes out tics, but with some disturbing side effects. Dr. Duncan's drug-free method involves retraining your body.
We figure out, okay, what tic are you having that you want to get rid of, and what would be the opposite of that tic? What could you do with your body where you couldn't possibly do that thing and the tic at the same time?
Give me an example.
Well, one of my first tics that I nixed was my snorting tic. And when I broke it down, I realized that, okay, to do that tic, first of all, I kind of tense my chest and I open my mouth. Well, what would be the opposite of that? Well, I guess I should relax rather than tense. I should shut my mouth.
So by doing the antithesis of what the tic is compelling you to do, you're actually breaking the cycle of the need to do that tic.
And the really neat thing about the treatment is that the less and less you do the tick, the weaker and weaker it gets. So eventually the urge goes away too.
Dr. Dunk's approach to tick management is right now turning the medical community upside down with this development. The Canadian Tourette Syndrome Foundation has just written its first ever guidelines for managing the disorder and has selected Dr. Dunk's treatment as the first line of defense.
The number one treatment that can be utilized is a psychological technique. And that's not only going to surprise the medical community, I think it's going to surprise the psychological community too.
Dr. Dunk has documented his treatment in this how-to manual for kids. He operates this website and a clinic in London, Ontario. And despite a punishing childhood, a young adulthood filled with anger and resentment over those who may have judged or mocked him, Dr. McKinley knows it's his difference, his Tourette's, that has made him the man he's become. Are you glad you were born the way you were born?
I often use the example of a pearl in an oyster, that pearls are created by an irritant, by a grain of sand that's scratching away, harming the inside of the oyster. If they were psychologists for oysters, if they could go in and sit on a little oyster couch, they would be begging you to take that grain of sand away. It's hurting my life. Please make it stop. And absolutely, I would have wanted someone to take my grain of sand away too. But ultimately, it turned into a lot of pearls.
And Dr. McKinley has an amazing quote that we would all be served well to live by, and that is that suffering ceases to be suffering once there's meaning.
And there truly is so much meaning with how he just got rid of his tics. Is this something that is expanding? Have other people adopted this?
Well, this is the amazing thing, is it's just now being adopted as the number one treatment for people who have Tourette's, but also for people who tic. You know, Tourette's is relatively rare, but 1 out of every 5 people has a tic at some point in their life, and you can teach yourself not to tic.
Amazing.
So the childhood that he had, he's working towards preventing that from happening to other kids. He's an amazing man.
Wow. Thank you, Avery. And your story could be the inside story. Contact Avery directly on Twitter @CityAvery or go to our website, citynews.ca, where you can also watch all of the previous segments of the Inside Story.